This is your street.
This is it.
The scenes along 86-year-old Roosevelt Pullum's Altadena Street were apocalyptic as we drove him back to his house today. The sight of its remains overwhelmed him. He recalled where he was when the flames started approaching, working on one of his cars.
This was my lady.
That house was home for nearly 40 years.
That was my peach tree.
As the sun rose this morning over Los Angeles, thick smoke filled the air and the scale of devastation became clear.
Good morning, Robert.
Today, Los Angeles County Sheriff Robert Luna said the damage was catastrophic.
Some of them look like a bomb was dropped in them, where we will be able to bring in canines and other things to help us hopefully not discover too many fatalities. That's our prayer.
Winds subsided enough Wednesday and overnight to allow firefighters to attack from the sky, dropping water and retardant in the burning hills and mountain ranges that semicircle Los Angeles. But dangerous wildfires continue to burn across LA County.
Let me just say that
today, the city's mayor, Karen Bass, responded to criticism that fire hydrants used to fight the massive Palisades fire ran dry.
The fire hydrants are not constructed to deal with this type of massive devastation, and that the number one problem especially was the fact that we weren't able to do the air support because of the winds. And so, of course, I am absolutely frustrated by that.
Los Angeles Fire Chief Kristen Crowley said extreme fire behavior is still possible.
Today, it is absolutely imperative that as we move into day 3 of this firestorm, all members of our Los Angeles community maintain vigilance.
A new fire Wednesday in the Hollywood Hills forced more mandatory evacuations, but firefighters made headway with the blaze and the order was later lifted. Today, President Biden addressed the fires from Washington.
I also want everyone in Southern California to know we're going to keep at it. We're sticking with this. We're going to continue to sending everything, literally, every resource we can find that's appropriate to help the governor and the first responders.
In Pasadena, the convention center has become a clearinghouse of calamity. This is where hundreds of evacuees of the Eaton fire ended up when they had nowhere else to go.
As far as I know, my house is totally engulfed based on the fact that on both ends of the streets, both of the houses were on fire.
Nakia Rhodes and her 2 daughters among them. They had little time to flee and no warning.
I could see flames rolling down the hills. I could see it rolling up the hills. I could see them going left. I could see them going right. I seen everything the wind was doing to the fire. And I'm wondering, why isn't anyone telling us to evacuate? You know?
It sounds like you have reason for some frustration at officials right now.
I do. I do. They failed me twice. They failed me by not telling me to leave my house with my daughter and my little baby, and nobody's telling me anything except for there's a cot in the other room.
17-year-old Destiny is a senior at Pasadena High School.
Since the power was out, we had no way to see. Like, we couldn't look it up on our phones because we had no power and no internet.
Yeah,
and
we couldn't watch the news.
We couldn't watch the news. So we had no idea what was happening, and all we saw was fire and red.
Longtime Altadena residents Patty and Bruce Brown have survived previous wildfire scares, but this one was different.
We always rode it out. This time it was different because we had to leave. It's the first time we've ever been to a shelter in our life.
They were able to save their dog, Captain, but they don't yet know how their beloved and one-of-a-kind house fared.
So we live in a house built from 1936 to 1941 by industrial arts teachers, so it's all handmade. All the light fixtures, everything in it are all handmade. So if it burns down, you can't replace it.
Back at the burnt-out shell that was Roosevelt Pullum's house, he sifts through still smoldering ashes. He left his wallet around here.
All my things for driving, my VA healthcare ID card.
He has insurance, but worries that it may not be enough to rebuild in an area where home prices have skyrocketed since he and his late wife first moved in. For Pullum, like so many, starting over here may not be an option. For now, he's staying at the convention center, and he's far from alone. The Korean War vet calls himself a survivor.
I've been through a lot, and that's all I kept thinking. I can get through this, and that's what I'm thinking now.
Here in Altadena, you can see that conditions have improved since I was here 24 hours ago. The smoke has somewhat cleared. You can still smell it in the air, but you're starting to see some blue sky. You're also continuing to see flames like the ones behind me and smoldering wreckage. This area is still completely closed to residents, many of whom have tried to go back to their houses but have been turned away. They did, however, let media come through this area to assess the damage today. We drove throughout the streets. There were some streets where all of the houses on a block would be burned down, but across the street, houses would remain intact. Sadly, I have to report that Nakia Rhodes' duplex is just across the street from where I'm standing. We introduced you to her in the piece, and her suspicions did turn out to be correct. There is no structure there standing, including her home and everything in it. Jeff?
And Steph, I know you've spoken to dozens of people who've had to evacuate, people who've lost their homes. What are the immediate challenges for them moving forward?
The challenges are immense, Jeff, because people who live in LA will say this. Wildfires, when they hit houses, are kind of like earthquakes. You have little to no warning. And so we have spoken to a lot of people who lost their homes, did not get an emergency alert text on their phone, and only fled when they had to, when the flames and sparks were upon them. And so they had the clothes on their backs. In some cases, like Roosevelt, who you met in the piece, they didn't have time to get their wallet or even a phone. And so they are navigating insurance companies, trying to book hotels, trying to get cash out of the bank. Roosevelt is an 86-year-old heart patient who has medication needs, and he can't get the prescriptions filled. And so that is what people are facing. And a lot of folks have come up to us and wondered, where are the FEMA officials? Where can we get help? What do we do? We've never been through this before. So a ton of challenges.
How disruptive have the fires been for the rest of LA County broadly?
These major fires are positioned in sort of a semicircle around Los Angeles. So you have the fire on the coast up there in the Palisades, and then you have this fire in the San Gabriel Valley, which is inland. And in between, you have the Hollywood Hills, which were in flames yesterday, and those have been put out. But as a result, Hollywood production companies and studio lots have been closed. Many school districts, including Los Angeles Unified, which is the second largest school district in the country, was shut down today. Traffic is snarled in many areas here in Altadena. Streets are closed. They have even postponed award ceremonies and considering postponing some major sporting events here. So it is quite disruptive for many Angelenos.
And at this hour, how much have the current major fires been contained?
The way that officials described it in an earlier press conference is they have been able to stall forward progress of the flames. In other words, the fires aren't growing rapidly, but they are still burning out of control, and there is 0% containment in the major fires that we've been talking about. The Eaton Canyon fire, which is where I am, and the Palisades fire, which continues to burn. So tens of thousands of people remain under evacuation orders here.
Stephanie Cyrus.